I am Paul Salvino, and I proudly serve as the superintendent of the Massillon City Schools. I am a 1997 WHS grad, a former teacher of science and social studies at Longfellow Middle School back in the day. And my last stop before becoming our superintendent was I proudly served as the principal here at WHS. We have with us some representatives from our fantastic Board of Education. Mr. Radel is out of town on work, but we do have Monica Weber with us, our board vice president. If you could just raise your hand. We have Mr. Ron Pritich, board member. We have Mr. Packerate, board member. And we do have Miss Liz Hersher. She is on her way, leaving a PTO meeting from the middle school, so she will be here momentarily. I'd like to really thank our Board of Education and their support. This has been quite an endeavor since my first being named our superintendent and really getting into the weeds with OFCC and researching different areas, different options. We have options, and I'm very, very excited to present. I knew, and this is a great crowd this evening, and thank you so much for coming. We are going to place this on the web for people to view at their own leisure so they can get the information that we're going to go over tonight. They probably have the bonus. They don't have to stare at my face all night, because I'm sure when we play it on the web, they'll put some of the background shots over me so they don't have to maybe stare at my face like you guys do for the next 40 minutes. So I just really like to thank our Board of Education. So we have two major goals for this evening. Two major goals to accomplish here, and I feel really good that we'll accomplish these goals. Number one is we want to be very transparent. I want to provide the most current information to our community regarding our school building options. So there's been a lot of work behind the scenes. I'm going to talk about that work and talk about kind of how we got to where we are today, as well as I want to explain how we will gain community input regarding the various options that we'll put in front of our public. So as we know, we're here for a reason, and that is to talk about elementary schools in the Massillon City Schools. And I'll step aside here so we can see some pictures. But obviously, just to give you a little history, we have Franklin Elementary, Gorell Elementary, and Whittier. Whittier is celebrating its 80th year in existence this year. If you go to any of our elementaries right now, you'll see clean buildings, upkept buildings, buildings that our maintenance department, our faculty, all of our school staff take great pride in. But if you look closely, you'll see issues with buildings that are reoccurring more and more and more, causing us to put millions and millions of dollars in for fixes, whether it's plumbing, technology, HVAC. So just, I'm not going to bore you with a ton of slides, but just some of our more recent. That top picture is a picture that the Independent took. They did a story last year when we had to unfortunately close our elementaries for a few days last school year due to we were under a severe heat index with the National Weather Service. That's me kind of taking a temperature gauge that we have, an infrared temperature gauge. We had heat indexes and temperatures well over 100 degrees, 104, 106, 108 degrees. I had to make the decision to close school on those days. We have some great pictures here of some main boiler room, our main drain at Franklin in the middle. We have an example of what an electrical area looks like in any of our given elementaries. Very outdated. We do not have the ability to put window units in classrooms due to the amperage max that we're at schools. And I'll explain a little bit in a little while about why we can't just, instead of looking at new elementaries, fix up the elementaries we have. I'll walk you down that path. Here recently, this was last year going into the school year, 2 days before the first day of school with students. I got a call. I'm excited. First year as a superintendent of schools, been around the district. Weeds are pulled, grass is cut, everything's painted, shiny, shimmering. We're ready to roll in my era of being our superintendent. I get a cell phone call from Mr. John Petro. I just got a call. We got a problem. Meet me at Franklin. Okay. This was on a Saturday. Go to Franklin. We had a pipe that rusted away and broke on a commode. And these pictures, it's hard to see from where you're sitting. I'm proud that we do wax our floors and they get really shiny. That's actually our floors under about 2 inches of water 2 days before a teacher reported, 3 days before the first day of school. So we actually had that happen very recently at Whittier a couple weeks ago. So we find that we are constantly having, those basic issues with plumbing and electrical, and I'll go into some details momentarily. So back in 2017, our community went through a survey or a study, if you will. The Board of Education at that time, with the former superintendent, hired a marketing firm, to get some Q&A and get some input from the community of what were some desires that the community had regarding new facilities. So our Board of Education and I have really sat down since July of 18 and really started looking at the data, meeting with OFCC, the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, which I'll talk about, to find out where do we need to guide this topic of new elementary schools. Where do we need to gauge this discussion? The one thing that I stand very firm on, as does our Board of Education, is we must maintain a balance. We have to have a balance between our student needs, our community needs, and fiscal responsibility. We have to maintain that balance. Nothing will probably be perfect for all involved, but if we're constantly looking at that balance, that'll be productive and positive for our kids. So one of the things that is very glaring in any community, let alone our great community, is, Paul, what can you demonstrate? How do you present an option that for once I don't have to pay a new tax? That'd be super, Paul. And I know that's pretty rare to do. We have a lot of different conversations going on in Stark County with various communities, and their communities and their school districts are hearing various options. There's a lot of OFCC conversations going on around the different communities in Stark County. Well, and working very close with our Board of Education, we have two options that deal with the need of new elementary schools in the Massillon City schools that come at no new tax, no new bond issue. Closing down our 3 elementaries, building new at no new dollars on a new bond issue. Well, on the business side, you have to think dollars and cents. So we really looked at, okay, those are 2 great options. What community doesn't want to see an option where, hey, great, finally, I don't have to get a new tax on something? The other side of it on the business sense is, what option in working with OFCC do we get that we maximize? We get the most money from the state of Ohio to put towards a new project. We have one of those. And I'll go into detail here momentarily on what those 3 options are. So why you're here is to hear, what are these options, Mr. Salvino, and how do I give my input? So we're going to go into that. Option A, 2 new preschool through 3rd grade school buildings. One on the east side of the city, one on the west. Specific location has not been determined. We do not know that. First step was we have to go through the process and determine what grade levels are we going to house in these new schools before we can start to really look closely at property. And all the options that you'll hear about this evening, our first priority will be to look at school property that is already Board of Education owned first, to see how that fits with our models. $13 million of this project will be state funded. No new taxes, no new bond issue. Option B, 1 large, very large, to house all of our preschool or pre-K through 4th grade. There has been a lot of community discussion about 4th grade. There's a portion of the community that feels our middle school is very crowded, and it is. Our current middle school was built for grades 5 through 8. And when elementary schools were closed back in 2012, that left the decision for fourth grade to go into the middle school. So we wanted to come up with an option that gets fourth grade out. Well, the option that includes a no new tax option would be this: a large building as centrally located as possible. I assure you there's no conspiracy theory. We don't have a secret location hidden in a box with a lock on it. Like I said, we need to first identify the options that we are going to go with, and then determine what space we need for those grade levels of that school building. So with that said, option A was no new taxes, no new bond issue, and we are there with option B being no new taxes and no new bond issue. I repeat, that is one large building replacing our current 3 elementaries. Option B would consist of a building that's probably housing 1,500 students. I have made contact to various superintendents throughout the state to study the model, if that is what we go with, to get an idea of how they have scheduled a building of that size and to have conversations. Once again, location is to be determined. Now, then I talked about how do we maximize money from the state, because who doesn't want to capitalize on as much money from the state as we can? So our Board of Education and I have met, and we feel it would only be prudent to not only offer options that come to the community of no new taxes and no new bond issue, but also an option that maximizes what we take in from the state. So in this project, it's 2 new preschool through 4th grade school buildings. Remember, option A was pre-K through A, or pre-K through 3. This is pre-K through 4. Also with this is a WHS, a Washington High School, OFCC required renovation. That project will be funded $34 million from the OFCC. Now, one might ask, Paul, how about the pre-K 4 minus the high school renovation? Could we possibly do that? Why we have selected this option behind me as option C is because if we went to pre-K 4 and left the high school out of it, we would still have to put a bond issue. We do not have the dollars to make that a no new tax setup. The high school renovation is something that we have talked to OFCC about extensively. And I repeat, that's the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission. And there's a lot of work that would need to be done here. There's nothing drastic. Our roof is in great shape. We're not falling apart. But there's just some update. There's some cosmetic. And there are some specifics with this renovation to Washington High School that our hands are tied and we must do with fidelity through their specs. Here's an example, because it's always good to hear an example. So many of our classrooms within the walls of Washington High School, if you go into the building, many of our internal classrooms, most all of our internal classrooms have partitionable walls, removable walls. Well, I can assure everybody in this room and everybody that's watching this video, as soon as we put it up to our webpage, those walls haven't moved since Paul Salvino was a student here in the mid-90s. And we're not moving them anytime soon. It would almost be foolish because we like the setup of our instructional spaces. According to OFCC, if we go into a renovation, all those walls must come down. So we would have to frame and sheetrock all those walls. That's a necessary part of the renovation. Other big items that you would see easily walking into our building is all of our front plaza concrete work, outside the ticket office, the front plaza, walking in around the flagpole, there's some flooring. So tying all that together, we would need to put a bond to our voters in the spring that would generate approximately an estimated $19 million, which is approximately $110 a year on a home value of $100,000. So our 3 options are A, 2 new pre-K 3s, east and west, no new taxes. Option B, one new PK4 as centrally located as possible, no new taxes. Option C, 2 pre-K4 buildings with the high school renovation with a new bond and a new tax. So, how do we get the input from our community? Well, we've gone down the road years ago with a marketing firm and spent some useful dollars, but I felt like we can do this a whole lot less expensively. We can really be smart here. We're going to put out a Google survey. Many of you in the room have probably completed a Google survey. If you haven't, and you're looking at me and you're like, a Google what? No worries. We will put out a phone line that you can call in, give us your input along with some other information, and your option selection will count. So for those that are a little bit more tech friendly, if you go to our webpage, and we will blast this out on our school Facebook page, all of our Twitter accounts, on our webpage, you will be able to click in a link to take the survey. And then there's some specific items that will be required for your selection, your vote, to count. So on the left, it's very blurry. When I built this slide, I said, there's no way I don't need you to read that right now. You'll see it when you go to click and take the survey. I just wanted to show you it's a very blank, a very vanilla screen, which you're going to see on the Google survey. On the right, though, there are some things on here that on the electronic survey, those are all required. So if you've ever done an electronic survey and there's a little red asterisk, and it says required, you cannot submit it unless you fill in that blank. Once again, if you're looking at me going, I am not getting online, I don't know how to get online, I don't want to get online, we have you covered, I promise you. For those that are a little bit more tech focused, you'll just follow these instructions. But we're asking, excuse me, for your email address, your first name, your last name, your home address. I need to know that you're a resident in the Massillon City Schools. It's very important. Are you a registered voter? And your option choice of A, B, and C. For those taking this online, this will take you 90 seconds to complete. 90 seconds, I promise you. 1 vote per resident. So you get 1 vote. So, if Mrs. Parr really likes option A, I don't want her to create 14 email accounts. 1 per name, per email address, 1 vote per resident in the Massillon City Schools. Now going to the telephone voting. If you take a look up here, and we will put this phone number out heavily throughout the school district. You'll simply pick up your phone, you'll dial 330-830-7450. You must give the following information just like we're requesting from our online folks that are filling this out. We will need to know your name, first and last, your address to verify you are a resident of the Massillon City Schools, because one of these options is a bond issue, and I don't want people that do not have the opportunity to actually vote on a bond issue, if that is what is selected, to have a say in it. Are you a registered voter? And your option choice. So you will call in to that number. We'll have some flyers for you to take on your way out today. We have a few more minutes yet, but I just wanted to let you know you don't have to write this down. We have a flyer with this information on it. You can share it with friends and family that are residents of the schools. And 1 vote per person. The data review side of this now. Our district team will thoroughly review all of the data that we take in via the phone lines as well as online. So we will go through, we will create a spreadsheet of the phone calls we receive, verify those are addresses within the Massillon City Schools to count that selection of A, B, or C. Same with the online. Depending on how many items we receive, kind of depends on how long it takes. I didn't want to set a true date in case it takes a little longer or we get done a little sooner with interpreting the data. What we will do is I will call my very good friend, Amy Knapp, with the Massillon Independent, and I will give her the information to obviously print, because I know that'll be information she'll want to put out there. We will be broadcasting the results to our public through all of our electronic forms of communication, all of our social media pages and venues. Once again, all that information that we ask for, address, name, all those pieces of information are critical for your selection to be counted. I've talked a lot about OFCC. What is it, Mr. Salviano? What exactly is this? For those that don't know what I'm talking about, it's an organization, the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission. So what we will do is we have made the determination what's best for the Massillon City Schools is that our Board of Education, we will send our plan, our option A, B, or C, to the OFCC in January for the OFCC to approve. It's confident, isn't it? To approve. We feel very confident that they will approve A, B, or C. Now, with that, the questions I've asked is, well, how long does it take for us to find out? A, is it approved? And B, what is the timeline of you sending us the dollars to finance whether it's A, B, or C voted upon option? They said, as soon as possible. So I'm using their verbiage on that. So as soon as OFCC grants that information, we will obviously be putting that out to the public. So in an effort to ensure that this project is as timely as possible, we selected January. And if those out there in the public today, or those who are listening to this video that will be broadcasted online, if you have followed our board meetings for the past 14 months, we have adjusted that date. Our Board of Education has passed 3 different resolutions picking which date we are going to go to the commission. What we've done at this point is we have pushed this date as far as we can push it to ensure we do not become a lapsed school district. I'll explain what that means. Through this process, we are asked to submit all of our EMIS data, so our student enrollment numbers, so that OFCC can give us a predictor of how many kids you will have in your school district. So there's been a lot of talk in Stark County. Population is declining in Stark County. There are parts of that that are true. We have been holding our own with a population of students in the Massillon City Schools, which is very exciting. So all that goes into it. All of our specific financials go to the OFCC, along with that EMIS data. That takes quite a bit of time to pull all that together, verify everything, and send it to OFCC. So with that said, if we do not submit our plan by January, then everything that we already have submitted up to this point, we will have to resubmit into the next year. And this process, I can assure you, will take at least an additional 2 years from where we are right now today, this evening. So we want to avoid that because we know we have the need for the elementary buildings. I just saw, and this isn't on my slide because I literally just, I meet every other day with our treasurer. And Sandy and I were having a conversation today, and staggering statistic, we spend $54,000 a year for a trailer outside of Franklin and Whittier because we don't have the space. So there are classrooms in the trailers. $54,000 a year. So we want to change those things. We want to tweak things. We want to get better. So that's just a staggering statistic that I said, man, Sandy, I think I'm going to bring that up this evening. Just another example of a cost savings. Obviously, we have 3 current elementary school buildings. So whatever option is selected, A, B, or C, we're going to go from 3 to 2 or 3 to 1, depending on what is selected. So our operations costs are only going to drop dramatically. Hopefully I have explained being a lapsed district and how that would basically put us behind having to go through this process all over again. So, just to pause for a second. We're here for a community update on September 16th on Monday night. A week from tonight, I will put this same presentation on at Massillon Middle School in their cafetorium so that if someone wanted to hear me and they couldn't make this evening's event, they can come out next week. This presentation will be put online for our people to view. The survey that I've been talking about will go live to the community for 1 week. It'll start on September 24th, which is the Tuesday after next Monday's meeting. So a week from tomorrow, that survey will go live, and it'll go until October 1st. That's 1 week. We have 2 survey options. We have electronic and we have a telephone option. That number that you'll see on your flyer today will go live the day the survey opens. It's a live number now, but there's no voicemail to leave a message. I will have voicemail on there that reminds our public who are calling in what are the things that you need to include in that. So, I thought I have a captive audience. I need to clarify a few things. I think it's very imperative that our community understands that we do have a renewal up in November. It's issue 19. It is not a part of what we're talking about this evening. That is a renewal for operations for the school district. So I just wanted to clarify a few things. One doesn't mean the other. They are 2 separate entities. So we do have a renewal. The issue is issue 19. It is not a new tax. Just a couple quick hitters. It is separate from the school facilities project. It is a $7 million emergency renewal levy. We do not have an emergency. I know there's some things, there was rumors being spread. Well, I want to know what emergency the schools have. We're not in an emergency. It was an emergency levy when it was first adopted in 1999. I apologize. So, that was the choice of the Board of Education at the time in 1999. So, this is a renewal of that. It has been renewed every time since. This renewal will generate $3.4 million for 5 years, beginning in 2020. Funds collected are for the purpose of operations, not construction, not going to A, B, or C. This will allow the district to maintain our current operations and programming. We have had a ton of new additions to the Massillon City Schools since this last was renewed. I know we're not here to discuss a renewal, but I felt it was very prudent to review that they are 2 separate entities. We have added a slew of academic programming, safety and security measures with camera systems to school resource officers, to all types of safety processes and staff, to mental health, arts, extracurricular activities. Okay, so I also thought, how could I not shout from the rooftops a few things about what's behind me? So last week, as many of you are aware, if you read the newspaper, if you follow anybody on social media, our state report card came out for the Massillon City Schools, covering the 2018-19 school year. So what I have behind me is a beautiful graphic that demonstrates. I knew that was going to happen. I've been fighting allergies for about 2 weeks. I knew I'd start coughing. So what we have, and I'll make it brief. So our overall district grade went from a D to a C. Really excited about that. There's a lot that goes into that 1-letter grade. The next 4 categories are major components of what goes into that letter grade. And the next 4 categories, we are extremely pleased and proud of. It's unbelievable, the growth that this district is seeing, the growth that our kids are seeing. Teachers, administrators, all school staff are working harder than ever. And I'm so proud. I'm so proud of that. So we have a progress grade, goes up a letter grade from a D to a C. That's student growth from one year to the next. Same student. So Johnny's a 6th grader. Now Johnny's in 7th. How did Johnny grow from one year to the next? The next category, the graduation rate, obviously I think we know what that is. That graduation rate of a B represents the class of 2 years ago. I joke with Mr. Lautenschlager and I remind him, I get to own the B because that was from when I was the high school principal. Next year's grade's on him. Don't I, Mr. Lautenschlager? Gap closing grade. This grade has me receiving a lot of emails and a lot of phone calls from a lot of school districts asking me, what are you doing to get that type of growth and gap closure? Without boring you with all the verbiage from ODE, here's what gap closure is. It's how are all of our subgroups doing? Every subgroup, so every school district has a subgroup of students. Ethnicity, socioeconomic backgrounds, students with disabilities. That F to a C demonstrates that every subgroup in the Massillon City Schools went that way. And that is unbelievable. And our prepared for success grade jumped a letter grade from an F to a D, and our foot is on the gas. So we're seeing 1 to 2 grade level jumps, and we're really excited about that. I can't convey to our staff enough, thank you, it's working. Keep working the plan. It's working. You're working harder than ever. I know. Our students are learning differently. They're being taught differently. It can be frustrating, but it's so rewarding, especially when we're seeing results that look like this. That about wraps up my part of the evening, the evening itself. People that really know me in the community, and I don't mean my closest friends, I mean people that have really just gotten to know me over the few years that I've been back home to Massillon. They've said to me on more than one occasion, it just seems a little different for you, Sal. It seems a little different. It is different. Because I take what we do very personally. I love this community. I'm a proud product of this community, of this school system. I wouldn't be what I am today without the education I received from this building. The mentorship, the lessons learned. I'm proud to live in Massillon, Ohio. I'm proud to have children in the Massillon City Schools. I'm proud to shop here, and I'm certainly humbled and proud to serve as the superintendent of this great school district. I thank you very much for coming out this evening. I look forward to your input when this survey goes live. It means the world to me that you gave up your evening to come here this evening, and if you have friends that are asking about this, encourage them to come next week to the middle school at 7 o'clock, where I will put this on again. I thank you so much for your interest in our kids and our future. Have a great night. God bless, and go Tigers.